All right, so like, welcome. We're crazy today. That's what we need to be starting off on every time. Just
Yes.
writer spaces.
Yes.
Writers, do you have your game face on? What characters are in your mind? You're like, that's kind of like the character that's behind you, isn't it crazy?
Pretty much. Yep.
I was watching a TV episode of something where the writer's talking to a character and the character's like a real illusion.
Yeah.
And I'm like, is that a thing that all writers do? Like when you imagine your character, do you imagine them as like a physical embodiment that's standing right in front of you?
Sometimes it really depends on who it is.
I'm like, do I just like close my eyes, or maybe I turn around? I'm like, oh yeah, there's Scarecrow. Oh, I thought I felt something. Oh, it's Crow. He's just trying to peck at me, except not like your cat, Chatzel.
And that's why whenever you hear us say, "Oh, we like talking to ourselves," we're talking about our characters. We like talking to ourselves. We like talking to our characters.
I'm not going to admit how often I talk to myself when I'm actually really talking to a character, because it is an embarrassing amount of times.
They're like, does this writer, are they schizophrenic? Do they have problems?
Oh.
No, they're just a writer.
Oh, I talk to myself every day, so I'm used to it.
I'm like, it'll probably get worse if I end up doing merchandising for any of the characters. And I'm like, okay, I am so influenced by wanting to do like a Beanie Baby or like a figurine or like the pops of like the characters. I'm like, will it make it worse if I can actually see the physical embodiments of the characters right there? And then I'll just imagine they're talking.
It's like making a new friend.
I'm like, I don't need real friends. I have my characters. You don't need friends.
You have your own imagination, man.
All right, writer, if you're feeling lonely, just talk to your character. Make up a new character to talk to. That's the way of the writer.
Yeah, honestly, I got to admit, for Pirates, I think that's actually how I created a couple of my characters.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, in the original iterations, I had 3 main characters. Mm-hmm. Like, not like they were like the points of view, because it was still Kasai in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I would almost like, and granted, keep in mind, I started Pirates when I was 12.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, and I know you said you had been working on it for so long.
Yeah. Well, one of my characters, like, I would almost like talk to them like almost daily, and eventually I actually ended up dropping them. But then they came back as a different character, and I did the same thing with another character, and like, they were supposed to be not exactly an antagonist, but they weren't supposed to be a good guy either. Mm-hmm. They were supposed to be kind of like a neutral, leaning towards bad. Okay. No, they ended up becoming the antagonist of the second book eventually. Because like, the more I talk to them, the more I'm just like, I hate you.
Like, I hate you, character. That's like that thing, like, I hate it so good. It's like necessary evil. Those characters, especially the characters we struggle with. Crazy. Did you think of one of your characters where they come into mind?
A lot of them are like y'all said. A lot of them are the dark ones, because I can't help it. Like, in real life, I'm happy, joy, but when I'm writing, it's like, finally I get to release the darkness.
Yeah.
Speaking of characters though, I came up with the most random characters the past couple of weeks with a hand. I didn't think that I was going to come up with new characters, because I already have a cast of 28 characters in the core Lost Scarecrow book. Of those 28 characters, I'd argue 7 of them are probably core, central to the plot. And then the rest are varying degrees of like side characters or scenes. But I wasn't planning on adding more, but I realized I was in a scene that needed like something. So I solved the something with a new character, and it actually came out really, really well. I had a problem, and I tried something with a new character, and it actually worked. And I was actually very, very surprised. I'm curious if you guys have ever dealt with that before, when you've been stuck at a part of your story and you're like, okay, try out a new character, and that could solve the problem.
Yep. I actually did that in Shifting Flame. I'm not going to say specifics, because I don't want to spoil anything for anyone who actually wants to read my books.
There's pirates in it.
But no, the new character that showed up, she wasn't actually there originally.
Mm-hmm.
I knew there was going to be Kasai, there was going to be Ox, there was going to be Brennar, and there was going to be, a few returning characters. But this character, her name is Zishia.
Mm-hmm.
She was not there, but then I got to this point and it's like, okay, so Ironwood is supposed to be doing this, and it backfired because of this event that happened like the chapter before.
Mm-hmm.
But it is so integral to the third book that I couldn't change the part itself. So I had to think of something else to do. And it's like, oh, wait a minute. I can really screw over one character like really badly and ended up actually making a new character to replace them. And it turned out really well because she's actually turning into a really neat character.
That's actually, it's really, really rewarding when you try something, try something to solve the problem, and the solution actually works out really well. That's just, it's so cool. And I feel that same way, Soul, because I didn't know how to make the moment or the scene with the scarecrow scene more exciting. And then I tried it this character, and the comedy is actually working. I like had to go back and review it. And for once, I feel like the comedy of the situational comedy is actually serving that part of the story well. So I was very, very surprised. But
one thing I actually might add to that, now that I think about it, sometimes it's not even just like a new character. It's simply taking a character that already exists and inserting them into the scene somehow. That can also make a difference too.
That can as well. I kind of did that a little bit with the rabbit's character, because I had the crazy rabbit is like a gem collector and has hundreds of voices in his head. And originally he was just like had like one line, and it was like 2 paragraphs in the rough draft. Then in the second draft, has about probably like 4 pages maybe. And I really incorporated his character more, and I feel like it was more effective. It really was way more. Now I'm just asking myself how I'm going to do that when I get to the midpoint and I have all 7 main characters and like 15 animal supporting characters. 30 animals enter, 1 animal leaves. Oh man. But thank you all for joining me. And by the way, welcome to the Right Now community. You found yourself in our 19th meeting of the Right Now Writers Group. We meet every single week at this time to just chat about writing shenanigans, writing craziness, maybe try to beat procrastination together and get some writing sprints done. So if you're joining us, make sure you stick around. We're going to be doing a couple writing sprints in a bit. And definitely feel free to drop a comment if you want to be involved in the conversation. If you want to hop on the stream with us, feel free to drop a comment, let us know, and we'll include you in future meeting invites. So you can come just chat, super casual, it's a very casual experience. Our goal is just, this is supposed to be a virtual writing group. So thank you all for joining. And let me just hop into the chat. ML taking it first, my friend. Glad to have you here. Megan, Bobby, like not the first one this time. Glad to have you in here, my friend. And let's see. Who else? Lynn, welcome. Megan, you're like, also on a side note, open my Fiverr account. Congrats. I saw your posting in the Discord. Good luck with the process, my friend. I know Fiverr is a really interesting beast. I would say while you're trying to work up and get more testimonials and reviews, just make sure that you're being proactive and asking people for work, because you're going to have to remember that your ads or your profile, whatever offer you put out, is now competing against all the other offers out there. So the ways to stand out is you need to add reviews, add testimonials, and add things to make your profile stand out over others. Hey, what's up, Lynn? Welcome. Glad to have y'all in here. You're like, Lynn, I'm hoping to do a sprint if work doesn't interrupt, because I have a full-time job that sadly the stream takes place during. Completely understand. And this is always my challenge with these live streams and the times. I always ask myself, what is the right time that caters to as many people as possible? And what I've learned is that the majority of our audience, especially our core community, tends to be a mix of the Central Coast and the East Coast, with some from the Pacific Coast and a little further. So that's why I always try. That's why I keep generally doing them at the times I do. But luckily I'm able to adjust our weekends to have the weekends fall earlier. So I appreciate you being able to stop by despite your scheduling. Let's see, Tiara in the house. Welcome. And Nil, glad to have you in here, my friend. WTC, hello. I'll work on publishing stuff for my book. What fun. I know your book publishing is coming out soon. So glad to have you in here. Excellent. So let's bring up Soul and Crazy back into the stream. All right, my friend. So I'm glad to have both of you guys here. Clearly, we always have some writing stuff to talk about. And I know we were kind of hopping into characters so far. I think characters is kind of on our minds. I know talking with characters can definitely be a thing, right? We all talk with our characters. But I know something deeper, and I don't think we've actually talked about this before. How do we go about writing characters who are drastically different than ourselves? Like, I know this was something that you've been dealing with, Soul. And I know sometimes with our protagonists, like our protagonist probably has a lot of reflections, a lot of elements of who we are, of our own personal journey at times. I'm like, does Scarecrow, maybe Scarecrow has certain elements, but I'm trying not to draw him like myself. But a lot of times then we have characters like bad guys, like good, neutral, evil, the whole range. So then it's like, all right, well, how do I write a character who is completely polar opposite from me? I pose this question to you, Livestream fam. How do you write different personality types other than yourself in a way that feels effective? So have you found any strategies that have worked for you so far, or you Crazy? It's Crazy. I know you write a very diverse cast of characters in your stories as well. Yeah. I'm wondering if there's any strategies that have worked for you guys before.
Well, I have to admit, sometimes I use ChatGPT to help me when I'm stuck on a character. So, like, I'll use Usopp, for example, from the fan fiction that I keep trying to finish and I can't because I can't write from his perspective. I've actually written a few paragraphs from him. I'll go as far as I can, and then I'll actually take it into ChatGPT and actually tell it, does this sound like him? Does this sound like him? How would I write his character? Just different things like that. I mean, I know that's probably not the best thing to do, but he is such a difficult character to write for me when it comes to the fan fictions. And then as for characters in my other books,
well, I mean, I think that's actually an interesting point because you're trying to model it after a character. I mean, fan fiction, obviously, the universe exists, but I think the interesting question that you bring up is, does it sound like him? Which when I do character development, that's what I like to get into the minutia of what are the specific things that make a character unique, right? So then what I would do is I would analyze and deep dive Usopp. What about Usopp's character makes people think, oh, that's Usopp? So if I closed my eyes and let's say that we just assume that it wasn't being narrated by his normal narrator, let's just say maybe it was like an audiobook or an audio reading, how would I know that it was Usopp? I would say based off his humor, his jokes, he has a very particular sense of self-demeaning humor, which is very specific to his character. And his humor is 9 times out of 10 self-demeaning. That's very consistent with his character. He has high ego, so he always likes to lead conversations whenever he's in the room. Now, obviously, these are both dialogue or can be shown in dialogue. But then I also ask myself, like, all right, actions. What are specific actions his character does that makes him different than any of the other 1,000 characters in One Piece? So then those are some of the things that just come to mind as I'm thinking about modeling a character.
Yeah, those are all that's all really good because I have to admit I can write his actions pretty well. The whole
so is it more like
running away and being a coward?
Is it like the interiority and dialogue then?
My issue with him is primarily dialogue.
Well, I'm not actually surprised. Would you consider yourself decent with dialogue in general, or just the dialogue with him is just struggling? Because it's
pretty much the dialogue with characters like him. Like, okay, so I've had a couple characters I've written in the past that are cowardly. I don't do so well with them. Characters that lie a lot, I may have an easier time with, but you combine them and it makes it difficult for me. And on top of all of that, okay, yeah, sometimes I'm kind of an ass to myself.
Mm-hmm.
Usopp takes it well beyond what I'm even comfortable with. And well, I'm also not a humor person. So I kind of avoid him.
Trying to model that can be difficult.
Once we get past like the 2-year skip, I've actually had an easier time with him because he actually got mature for once.
Well, yeah, because he gets
before, it's just like at the very beginning of the series where it's just
I feel like the 2-year skip is he's halfway. I mean, it's technically supposed to be halfway through their character arcs, which I think should technically be halfway from a character development perspective.
Yeah, I gotta admit, Usopp, I haven't really like. It wasn't until Wano that he actually like got to the point where it's like, oh, he's not my least favorite character anymore. He's still not my favorite, but he's not the least favorite.
Do you judge it based off the anime, or are you talking more from having read it, the manga?
Both.
Okay. Because yeah, I think if I was analyzing dialogue,
when it comes to the anime, it's easier to get an understanding of who he is because like I can actually see the movements and I can actually put a voice to his character. I can actually put a voice, to his voice. But the manga, it also lets me study his actions in a frame by frame motion, which with how my mind works, it makes it easier to picture how he's going to move, which is why I do so much better when it comes to actions with him rather than dialogue.
A really easy trick with dialogue, and this works whether you're imitating a character or trying to make your own, is asking yourself, what is one type of word? Now, this is just one strategy of a bunch of different strategies. What is one type of word that this character is overly reliant on? And don't have it be a word like, don't have it be a common word like then or and, or like something that's like a simple, have it be like a unique adjective, or is it something that the character says consistently? Or do they have a tendency to use punctuation? Or do they have a tendency to speak using a certain punctuation more often? That can also be another strategy. Like a character who yells all the time means that they're going to be using a lot more exclamation marks. Whereas if you're talking about a character who's like very like dreamy and might be more a space case, they're probably using ellipses a lot of the time. So I think these are ways that I think of with dialogue when it comes to just like easy character tricks that have at least worked for me in the past before. Because dialogue can be a challenge. My guess, not guess, but I mean, based off what I've seen from other writers in the past 10 years, I think dialogue seems to be one of the more difficult things for writers to generally get the hang of. And when I say that, I mean like getting it authentically so it doesn't sound like them naturally.
Right.
And I mean, this is different. Like the rough draft is the rough draft. That should sound like whatever. What I mean more is once we're like a couple drafts into it and we're trying to get the characters to sound like they have a unique voice. So I could close my eyes and two different characters don't sound the exact same.
I actually try to do that from the beginning. That's actually how I wrote Ironwood. Ironwood is another character that I've written, and this one, original, that his personality is not like mine, and for a very good reason. The guy is sadistic. He's almost a psychopath. He just almost like revels in pain and just gives no craps. Writing him was a little easier than Usopp, but I think part of that is because of the things I've read in the past. I do tend to gravitate towards those kinds of characters that are more serious, that are more dangerous. And I have to admit, the problem I had writing with Ironwood actually wasn't because I couldn't write him. It was more of, it was uncomfortable because I had to think about this guy who gives no Fs about anyone but himself, who will gladly off someone because they just annoy him. And it's like okay, I don't like being in this kind of mindset.
He sounds like an upstanding gentleman.
I like him already.
Yeah, crazy. You really should not like him because his original iteration, when he was before he was an antagonist, he was actually kind of based off you a little bit.
Dang!
I like him.
No wonder you like him.
No,
I like it.
No, Ironwood's current iteration is nothing like you, crazy. It's just his first iteration was.
Fine with me. I love it. I like him.
I love it when writers do that. They're like, so I based a character off you, especially a friend or family member. And they're like, oh, you did? And people always get so excited. And you're like, yeah, they're the most evil antagonist and everybody hates them.
Yes.
I know. Me too. I'd be like, success. They better be like a Darth Vader type character. They better be badass. They better be really cool. Because people love villain characters. People absolutely love villain characters for a reason. I think there's a reason that if you did a poll of all the Star Wars fans in the world, my guess is there'd be more Darth Vader over Luke Skywalker. I feel like that would be my guess. But yeah, people always gravitate towards villain characters more. It's probably because of the power fantasy.
Well, also I think villains are actually, and I hate saying this because I know it's true. I think
villains
most
are good guys at heart. Villains are good guys gone wrong.
They're familiar. We see, at least anymore, we see more villain type people in the world now than we see good people, which is really sad and depressing. So we're more familiar with it, and it's a little more relatable.
Interesting. That's actually interesting. So it's almost like we might gravitate towards villains because we know clearly villains, for them to become villainous, they had to have gone through some type of dark experiences that shaped them into that. We can probably agree not everybody starts out a villainous when they come out of the womb. So that means that generally nurture played a huge part in a villain story. Of course, like nature can absolutely be an aspect of that, but from a storytelling perspective, 9 times out of 10, it's nurture. That something generally happened, or a series of somethings happened that led to the villain becoming who they are.
Yeah,
Which that's actually interesting. That's actually interesting. I want to pose this question to the group, actually. How do you guys create villains? Like, how do you guys create really compelling, like great villains, great antagonists for your story?
Dang, I wouldn't know how to explain that one.
Well, while you're thinking about that, let me just pull up a couple chats. I saw Lynn when we were talking about character development. Lynn had a great strategy. Find the emotion similarity. Find the emotion similarity. Even if I'm different, they have experienced motions than I have. That's interesting. So generally it's thinking of character development, start with the emotion. And I actually like that because readers connect with an emotional state, which is why there are emotions that are very obvious: love, hate, it's like the 6 core emotions is generally what relates people when it's the most obvious through all their actions, interiority, dialogue, and so on. So that's actually really, really cool.
Yeah, it makes sense too.
Susan was like 22,000 words and counting. I know, right?
Nice.
Great job, Susan. Awesome that you're making progress. Megan's like, yes, I talk to my characters in my mind and figure out how to design them. And I think that's cool. That's a skill when you're able to actually write the character and then animate it or design. If you have that specialty, that's actually a really cool skill. The best I can get is stick figures of Scarecrow and Crow. I don't even know if I could get Crow. It'd probably look like a dragon.
I like it. Honestly, I think the most, I will say from one of your past questions, the most difficult character I ever had to write that wasn't based off myself was from my 3rd book, The Alien, because it was completely not about, how I would feel or whatever. It was just a random thought, and it's like, okay, how would he react out of how you see normal aliens react in like movies or TV and stuff? How would he react to certain things we like, and what would, like, for instance, one of them was him finding a place for rent, and he didn't know what the heck rent was, and it's like, well, I obviously know what that is, but I didn't know exactly what type of person to make him as, so it was kind of difficult to do with him. That's why I'm not really too happy with that one, but there's always improvement sometimes.
You know, crazy. That actually resonates with me because there's a certain aspect of Scarecrow that has that same problem. Scarecrow, blank slate, remembers nothing from his life, right? So then, as and especially as I'm in the second draft, I keep asking myself, what does he remember, right? Because technically we have short-term memory and long-term memory, right? Does he remember that a tree is a tree, or does he not remember that? Obviously, he doesn't remember his memories, but I've been playing into different elements of like, okay, well, he remembers certain things, but he doesn't remember certain aspects of society. So I've been trying to balance that. Like, obviously, we know what a tree is. I think an interesting thing for me was like trying to describe houses or like talking like stone houses, but he doesn't know what the material is. He doesn't know what stone is. He doesn't know, or he doesn't remember what stone, iron, wood. He doesn't know what they're called technically. So then I have to describe it in a way that's true to his character, just not remembering what it is, but it has to be clear to the reader. Right. So that's always an interesting thing I face. And I could only imagine as like an alien trying to describe that. That must have been a challenge.
It very much was, because I knew I wanted him to be a bit sarcastic about things, but I didn't know exactly how he would say it, what he would say. So it was just pretty difficult. As for the rest of them, they were based off just me, mostly, of either, if I was an evil person, what would I do? How would I say things or whatever? And especially with this newest character that I'm writing about, finally got back into after so long. He's more of like me, who, as so would politely say, doesn't give a crap about anything and lets people know about it, including the reader themselves.
It looks like we have some interesting characters in our chat as well. Megan mentioned a good example of an opposite character is June, Camille's older brother, who is a gecko demon. Like, that's interesting. A gecko demon. I was like, I like geckos and I'm interested in demons. So it seems like a really interesting combination.
I kind of like to see that.
I'm kind of interested like what the visualization is of that. That's actually really, really cool. Guys, just like I just base off people who piss me off pretty badly. Bobby, that totally reminds me of that shirt, which like I totally want to buy that one shirt that says, don't piss me off, I'll write you into my story. Or there's also that don't piss me off or I'll turn you into the villain. Oh man, that's actually really funny, especially when we're thinking about like motivation for characters. I mean, characters are important. Like, it's interesting when you think about storytelling, you think about the different elements, right? Between character development, plot, and world building, right? There's three major elements: character, plot, world building.
Yeah.
You could, if you have poor character development, but you have a good plot and a good world, do you think people will still be interested in the story?
No.
But if you have a great character and if you have a poor plot and a poor world, do you think people could still be interested in the story?
I think it's more likely people are going to be interested in a good character with a poor plot and world rather than the other way around. At least that's what I've seen.
No, I completely agree with that, because we've seen very difficult stories and done poorly, but then we see really great characters. Now, they don't always hit if the world and the plot are both a fail. I feel like generally the character has to be good, the plot has to be at a certain level, but then the world building could be failing for that to work. But I mean, technically, let's say you have a great character, a really interesting world, but the plot sucks. Which that tends to happen with a lot of video games, unfortunately.
Yeah. It's just...
That's true.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And I think that goes to show why character development is so important. It really, really does. I'm like, without developing a solid character that feels believable for us, then
they gotta be at least half believable. If you can at least do half, then I think whatever you're doing, whether it's a book, it's a comic, it's a game, whatever, as long as the character is at least half believable, half relatable, you've got a chance.
What do you think makes a believable character? like to you guys when you're thinking of like what like read like what you've read in books or like seeing on television or movies? Like what's believable to you guys? And obviously this is a little subjective. It can be different for every person, but there's probably a couple universal truths would be my guess.
Well, just look at Spider-Man, man. I
Mhm.
mean, he's got to do superhero stuff. Meanwhile, he's got to focus on also real problems like, his girlfriend or
Mhm.
himself, his job, all the very important things while he's trying to be a superhero as well. And it gets kind of difficult on him. And a lot of
And
people,
I think that theme works very, very well for most people because at the core, it's balancing family versus balancing you can maybe say dream, but balancing a responsibility of having to help others.
right.
And I think that at heart, most people have family, and then most people have some type of responsibility to something else. And then especially if that responsibility is being a superhero, absolutely, that's an interest. Which once again, that's probably why in the original Spider-Man movies, especially that line probably was gained the most prevalence of the uncle. What was that? His uncle's dying line: "With great power comes great responsibility."
There you
I
go.
would say that was probably the most prevalent quoted line from the original Spider-Man movies.
Yep.
I'm not as familiar with the comics, so I'm not as
Yeah.
familiar with that part of the universe.
I know for myself, I find it nice when a character, like, whatever crap they go through, it's not unrealistic. So like I know like Kasai in the first book, he goes through an unhealthy level of crap. And it does kind of go a little overboard in a few places, but it is still believable. Some people do have that bad of luck. And then there's one character that I've read about. God, what book was it? A Wolf Song. I was so excited to read that book. My God, I think I got like not even halfway through the book, and it's like, wait, what in the hell is going on? Because I lost what the character was doing. I lost what he was there for. And it's like, please, for the love of God, keep him on track.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that actually does happen a lot, where technically you're promised some type of the author makes some type of promise, or the creator makes some type of promise to you about the character or the character journey, and then either the journey or the end result doesn't pay off and match whatever your expectation was. And then that's usually when it loses an interest, because it's one thing if you're expecting something and then it's subverted and something cooler happens, but it's a different thing when you're promised something and you don't get any type of payoff on that expectation, and there's no hints that lead to that end payoff.
Yeah, I gotta admit, that's actually one of the few books that I've never been able to finish just because of that.
Really?
And it was just that disappointing. It's like, if I can't even make it halfway through the book, how in the world is this book popular? And it's only because the main character just didn't stay interesting. He just kind of more melded into a kind of like a blank face almost.
I could totally see that. I know Megan was sharing the character has to be believable to relate to the reader audience. It can be about anything, even when dealing with major issues. The character starts out as dealing with problems till they go on a journey that helps them grow into a stronger person. And I mean that's probably why the 3-act structure. That's why the hero's journey. The core models have stood the test of time from a storytelling perspective, because we like to see somebody go on a journey, because we all hope that we can overcome our own problems and change, right? The story is essentially a character changing to a better state at heart. That really is.
And honestly, I also find it really nice when a character, and this is what I did with Kasai, when they don't, so like Kasai, he didn't actually learn, he basically didn't get mature until the end of the second part of the first book, because I didn't want him to learn his lesson too soon. Because I've encountered characters like that before too, where it's not even halfway through the book and then suddenly they go, like, they're good, but they go through like all this crap and they're like, oh, this happened. I've got to do this now.
Mm-hmm.
But whatever event made them change for the better happened far too soon. And there's still like 2/3 of the book left.
Interesting. So when the character learns their lesson in the first half of the book, which is really probably by the midpoint, what does that second half of the journey look like then?
When I read a character like that before, and this was years ago, keep in mind, I can't remember which book it was. The character didn't really learn anything new for the rest of the book. It wasn't a bad storyline. It's not a book it's not a book I've picked up since then, but it wasn't, but it was a book that I was able to finish. And like the character, they learned their lesson.
So they saw the character development and then probably focused on the plot then would be my guess.
Yeah, it seemed like, if I recall, I think the second half of the book may have focused more on the antagonist and what they were doing rather than the main character. So I mean, it was kind of like, I think it was kind of plot, but also kind of character development for the antagonist. But the protagonist no longer grew, and that was, I have to admit, even with the rest of the book being not half bad, it was a little boring because the protagonist didn't change anymore. And it's like,
then that makes it feel stale.
Yeah.
And I know ML asked, so what was the name of the book? I think ML was referencing the last one that you said that wasn't a good book.
Wolf Song.
Wolf Song.
That's the first one, yeah.
Okay. You're like, so if you want to read a book to definitely put down before it's time, that was one that you do not recommend.
Yeah. I still can't believe I fell for that one. It sounded so good too.
It's
a werewolf book, so.
Is there any books that you guys would recommend that you've read this past year? I know we have a lot of avid readers in our community. Courtney is like, Emma, isn't that your favorite book? Is it Wolf? That'd be very ironic.
That would. I'm interested in what happens here. What's he gonna say? Let's see what happens here.
Well, I know this year I started reading that new Avatar series that goes through Kyoshi, Young Chen, and now Roku. I haven't read Roku's story yet, but we gotta read from the other. Say what?
It's a new Avatar like book series.
The first two books, you get to see Kyoshi when she discovered she was the Avatar and how she was, well, basically a criminal. And then you get to hear about Yang Chen and how she was an air nomad that more or less had to denounce her heritage because she was the Avatar, because she could not let go of worldly matters like airbenders are supposed to. And plus also it was hilarious because Yang Chen is actually Kyoshi's grandmother. So that was really funny.
Oh man. And I think Avatar is a great example of a cast of really, really great characters put together. Avatar has a lot of really, really good characters in it. And I was like, even though Aang's our protagonist, I don't necessarily know if Aang's my favorite character in the story. I think the last time we pulled people, I think Zuko won. I'm pretty sure probably. Zuko was everyone's favorite.
He had like the best character development ever.
Once again, a bad guy, but technically is a misunderstood antagonist, right? Who then goes through the journey. He technically goes through a redemption arc. And I think redemption arcs generally resonate with people. Do you guys generally tend to have like a favorite type of like character journey to write with your stories?
A lot of my characters kind of start off in bad places. Sometimes it's like Kasai, who watched his mother die. And then sometimes it's simply they just didn't have the best life in the first place. And they just kind of go up from there. And I know a lot of my characters, they go through.
So would you argue it's like, would you argue it's technically coming of age for the character?
Yeah, I think it really would be sort of a coming of age kind of story. Not all of my characters are like that, but I think a good majority of them are.
You trying to go through. Okay. What about you, Crazy? Are there any like types of character journeys you tend to write? What?
Yeah, no, ML knows the book.
Yes.
I have to disagree.
Wow.
Sorry, ML, I just could not get into that.
Oh, that's hilarious. We finally got our answer. That was awesome. That was beautiful.
That's absolute. And I was like, I have to disagree. It is a great story.
It
So
seemed like a
this
good
is really-
story. I just got so lost.
So you see, it's really interesting, right? And neither you guys are right nor wrong. It's two different subjective opinions of a story. I've never heard of it, but yeah, I don't know, but that's really interesting. I think the irony behind that was pretty funny.
That was awesome. I was hoping it would happen. Thank you, ML. But to answer the question, honestly, most of my characters don't really start off and well, the only kind of bad situations that maybe a few of them have ever been in, granted they're cliche, but still, whatever, is their world would end up being destroyed somehow and they'd find their place here where we are. And as for my new character, he was just you're a normal guy until he died.
I mean,
And
I think that's a what fish out of water character
yeah,
journey, or
yeah,
essentially character different. So the story is about the character having to adapt to an entirely new
right,
world.
right.
Okay.
And for my newest character, um, he died and ended up in hell, and he gets tortured for 3 years. And I kind of thought about for supernatural fans out there that we know that they said 4 years is like 40 years in hell. So in other words, for my character, 3 years is like 30 years in hell of being tortured. And he finally says, okay, because this demon woman wants him to hunt down this girl. And he says, all right, fine, I'll do it. And she changes him from human into a demon. And that's when his whole journey starts.
I love
So
that.
so
I love that.
he kind of starts out as telling the reader about himself of like the kind of person that was a very bad person, let's just say, and then that's why he's dragged into hell. And there's a catch to it that if he decides to stray from his mission to find this girl or anything, or tries to do something else, she will drag him back down to hell and he will never come back.
That's a scary one. That's wow. That's powerful. I mean, like what good consequences, right? You're like, if you screw up, you're going to hell.
Yep. And
Sounds like
he
hell's
won't come
probably
back.
not a very nice place in your universe.
No, it's not. No. Because for his torture, it's like I kind of thought a little bit about Greek mythology, and forgive me that I don't remember who the guy was, but it's been known that Zeus punished him and crows would feed on him and stuff, and then eventually he would regenerate to do it all over again constantly. And that was
That
my
sounds
character's
familiar.
punishment.
It sounds familiar. His punishment was crows would constantly like peck at his like stomach,
Yeah.
right, and eat his
Peck
innards.
at his stomach and innards and stuff, and then
Oh,
they'd
which
leave
one
him
that
alone
was?
for a little bit, and he'd regenerate, and they'd do it
Was that
again.
the fire one? Well, was that the one who stole fire?
I
Prometheus?
I think so.
Let's see, which character was punished by Zeus and had his and was constantly eaten by crows? Oh, Prometheus.
Yeah.
Yep.
Prometheus.
Yeah.
He was chained to a rock, and the eagle would come eat his liver each day, which would then regrow overnight, perpetuating his torment.
Yep.
Man, those Greek gods, they were not nice. I wouldn't even say they were creative either. Like they're like, okay, here's your punishment, a single punishment, repeated every day for eternity.
Yep.
I was like, oh man, no, thank you. Don't piss off a Greek god. There's the moral of that story. Oh man. I think I would say that I was asking myself if my protagonists tend to be underdog characters. I think sometimes they tangentially end up becoming underdog characters, but I think the core journey that my characters tend to take on average is journeys about the ability or the inability to forgive oneself. I think self-forgiveness and forgiveness itself is one of the most difficult things for a lot of people to really be able to do, because it's how do you forgive somebody who's truly wronged you, or how do you forgive yourself when you've truly wronged others? And I think that's a character journey that I love taking because of the complexity of, okay, right, you lied to someone, sure, let's say it's an easy lie, everyone has white lies, but what about when you've like seriously like caused trauma upon others, and having to rectify or live with that, or when others have caused serious traumas upon you? So I always tend to take journeys of forgiveness. It could be constituted as a redemption arc to a degree, but I think that's generally the character journey I tend to go on with my stuff. Let's see. Or apparently characters who have gone crazy and don't remember anything. One of the two. Let's see.
Those are always kind of fun.
What? Oh, I love that. I love that. Courtney was like, I like writing about overcoming emotional issues, like falling is overcoming grief and being lied to. Well, this current story is about overcoming childhood abuse. All very, very traumatic things, right? Overcoming grief is a hard one, and everybody responds to grief differently. And then childhood abuse is like, that's difficult, right? How does one overcome childhood abuse? And a lot of times childhood abuse leads to abusive adults, which make for great character arcs and great character journeys, but very, very difficult people to deal with. That's fine. I'm just reading the comments, so I'm not gonna force you to read the book again.
Honestly, I may try it again. I might just
whether you like to or not, and it only counts if you're reading it on a stream. ML has to be watching you turn each page of the book.
Oh my god!
Like it doesn't care. Like, yeah, I read it. I need a full recording.
As funny as that is, and I would watch as well, please. I just thought something that maybe that's also why people tend to like villains more, because when they realize what villains went through, like child abuse or whatever, and they resonate with that, it's like that's probably also why they like villains more, because it's like they get why they turned evil of maybe child abuse or however, and it's like, okay, I get it now. I get why that person is evil and they can't go back.
Interesting. So it's because it's a villain. When we think of a villain, we know they've gone through a trauma, right? So with that assumption, it's like, oh, that's an interesting thing. How did they fail at overcoming their trauma?
Right.
That's actually really interesting.
Because every once in a while you'll have villains that are like Umbridge, where they're just straight up evil.
Right. There are some people that like the psychopaths. There's people who are just inherently, which that goes into the nature, right? By nature, they're probably evil. But a lot of the villains tend to be nurture because they had to follow to a reason, and they have to have a reason for. It's harder to explain a character that they're just like, I'm evil because I'm evil. And usually their character arc, like even with Umbridge, is a really great example of an antagonist. But there's no way for her to have a redemption arc because that's just who she is.
Yes.
Right. All the things she does sucks. They bring her back again in the last book because she sucks.
If you read the books, it gets it's like super creepy because we get to see her Patronus when there's Dementors around.
But her punishment is worse in the books too. Like they kind of have her like taken by the centaurs, but it's more graphic in the books. Like her punishment
I laughed at that.
Very good.
I'm sorry to say, but I laughed at that. She deserved it.
I know, but it is harder to write villains like that and have them be relatable. Like you can write them like Umbridge is entertaining to watch as an antagonist with Harry Potter, but Voldemort is way more interesting. Voldemort
because we know what he went through.
Exactly. Right. And Rowling spent so much time showing the reader why Voldemort became Voldemort by the time we get to the end of the story.
That were so ingrained. And honestly, I think the nicest bit of foreshadowing she did was that technically the first time we really get to see Voldemort is the second book. We actually get to see what he looked like before we even understood who he was.
Which I think that worked, right? That was a really good example of storytelling, right? The first Harry Potter story, Sorcerer's Stone, is a very, very classic urban fantasy school journey. It's a very, very classic hero's journey. But then the stories evolve book by book, obviously. So Courtney makes me laugh. Right now, book club, we're reading Wolfsong. All right, so when we start the Right Now book club, Wolfsong is number one. You're going to be forced to join it, whether you like it or not.
I get the chance. I'll try the book again and see if I can understand it better.
And then when we have to talk about the Wolfsong book after everyone's read it, we'll be like, all right, so we'll start with you. What did you think about it? Can you provide a summary of the book for us first?
Man, you guys are just mean.
Oh man, I think Courtney just wants us to start our Right Now book club. You know what's interesting? This brings up a really good point. A book club for the Right Now community is something that I do want to do at some point in the future. It's definitely something I'm interested in. I think book club would actually be a super cool thing. I don't have the bandwidth for it right now. So, but it's definitely something that I think could be definitely a really good value add to the community in the future. If we ever have any community members who want to help with the book club, that would make matters easier. But I think, what was that? Was that like I want to read Wolfsong?
Well, okay. I can help with the book club thing. Provided I'm not doing something like the adventure right now, I'm more than happy to help with the book club.
That would be very, very cool, Soul. Because I know we definitely had Courtney's not the only one who's brought up the book club before. Let's think about it and talk it offline. I think what we do is we probably throw up opinions or throw up how people would want to be involved in a book club in our community through the Discord, and then we would launch it in a way that's effective. What I don't like doing is I don't like launching something that we don't have a clear enough strategy for, because I want people, if they're going to be involved in something, I want everyone to get the value out of it.
Oh yeah.
I know my personal challenge with the book club is I already don't have enough time to read the books that I want to read. I was like, all right, then that means something. I add something. Then I was like, all right, well then I have to read it, which I love reading, but my time is slow. So I'm still trying to figure out how to work reading back into my schedule.
What about audiobooks?
Audiobooks I could do, right? But the problem is a lot of the books, like especially for newer writers, because I really try to pay attention to a lot of beginning writing material. A lot of newer writers don't launch audiobooks. Mainstream bestsellers do, but a lot of newer ones don't have audiobooks, which I fully disagree with. I think if you launch a paperback, you should have an audiobook, but it costs money. It's money and time, right? And that's always the thing, right? Paperback, physical, hardback, audiobook, more money and time, right? But I think I would be of the mindset, and I think this is probably also because I'm like a content creator. I'm like, all right, well, I'll just create the audiobook myself. I'd rather have something there, and then I can pay for something later if I've generated income for it. I would rather be able to offer something than nothing. But granted, because I lead a very busy lifestyle, I only have the flexibility to be able to listen to audiobooks at this point in my life.
You know, actually, I just remembered I'm in a couple other Discords, and one of them is a fan fiction, a fan fiction author, and they were actually talking about audiobooks the other day. Islan was AO3 was down, Archive of Our Own. It was down for a little while, and they were kind of complaining that there's no audiobooks for fan fictions, and someone else in the server actually said, there's some there that people like sometimes record their own, and after I read that, I actually kind of thought, that's actually not a bad
they record
idea.
them like reading their own fan fictions through like just audio files.
Yeah, the author reading their own fan fiction and then posting it somewhere. And I thought that was a really neat idea because I mean, obviously you hear about that with regular books, but not fan fictions. And I'm actually kind of thinking about doing that with some of my own.
I know that's a good idea. I mean, but like everybody has one of these, right?
Pretty much.
Record your audiobook. It's going to take hours upon hours upon hours to read it. Record this, sell a copy. You'll be able to record this, make an audio file, sell the audio copy. You'll be able to get revenue because, like myself, there's a lot of people out there who only listen to audiobooks and then pay for a professional one later on down the line. I'd actually highly recommend that.
And honestly, what's really good about recording your own too is you get to, so the author knows exactly how the characters are supposed to sound, the inflections in the voices, the kind, the pauses, the people talking fast, the stuttering, all kinds of things. They know how the characters are meant to sound. When you hire somebody, they're not going to understand that just from reading it even once. So you have an audiobook and you want to get like a professional one later. The next recorder has something to base off of, because like if a character asks a question, there might be 10 different ways to ask it based off the inflection of your voice.
Yeah.
And the author is the only one who's going to know exactly how that character is supposed to sound.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really interesting call out. And I think at the end of the day, the author will always know how the characters should sound based on inflection, tone, and so on and so forth. I completely agree. I think the fear that I see, or that I imagine a lot of authors face, is they don't feel comfortable probably sharing their voice through that or doing, because it could borderline acting to a certain extent of voice acting. Which I love that. I have an acting background, but that's clearly, if we're all on the stream, we've gotten to the point where we're fine with being on stream, but not everybody's at that point.
Right. And in my other writing group, one of the ladies, she actually just published a book, Sensible something. I can't think of it off the top of my head. I have to look it up. But she was actually asked to record her own book, which was really cool. But her issue with it was it's basically acting. And I really could not disagree with her, because it's like, if you kind of speak monotone, nobody's going to listen to it. You have to make the characters sound distinct, at least a little bit. And that is, if you're not used to talking, if you're not, if you're not familiar with your voice enough to do something like that, yeah, it's going to be difficult. I know myself, I'm going to have no problem, because I've sang in front of people before and I was fine. I can't speak in front of people. Well, I mean, here, yeah, but
I know. I wish I was a better singer, but yeah, I've done all the things in front of people. What's interesting is, let's see, Courtney was saying Kindle allows you to read it to you, which is helpful. Usually you have to get the audiobook version for it to read it to you, though, I believe, right? I was like, I don't know if it reads it to you, if there's a default reading setting.
I think a lot of programs anymore have a like a read aloud feature, like a text to voice kind of feature. So, I mean, it may not exactly be an audiobook, but sometimes you can at least do that. I know Google Books does that.
That's interesting. I think I've always been used to just going through the Kindle app, and then either gives you the audio option or the not, depending on what you've purchased. But there's probably other ways, I imagine. Lynn brought up a great comment. You're like, my partner recorded and posted his own audiobooks from his self-pub books. It's a thing. That's so awesome. And recorded and posted his own audiobooks. Lynn, I'm curious, did your partner, did they just take like a phone and then just record it themselves? Because clearly it sounds like if they've had some success, or did they get like certain type of equipment to record it? I'd actually be really curious. I always love hearing success stories. Courtney, me and ML looking at each other going, no one would understand that. Even with your guys' accents, we would still be able to understand you, right?
Mhm.
But when you have accents or when you have heavier accents, it's just something. It's a different type of obstacle, and it's just something you have to be aware of. But Courtney, ML, we've had you guys both on the stream. I have never had a problem understanding either of you. So something to keep in mind.
I think some people also think their accents are heavier than what they really are.
Or it could be that their accents come out at certain times, right? And obviously when people are in public, they put on their best front, but they could also know, like, yeah, certain times, like, my accent's like this heavy. And for someone who doesn't have an accent, that's not something I could really relate with or understand.
You actually kind of do have an accent. It's not heavy, but you do kind of have an accent.
Ooh, what's my accent? Where's it from? It's from it's my
I definitely
accent.
say West Coast. It makes me think of the people that tried that lived there.
My accent is part dragon.
I have a good ear for accents, so I mean, even if it's faint, I can kind of tell a little bit.
Like I said, Soul, if something's ever the matter, put a dragon on it. Oh my god, I'm totally creating like a sticker at some point that's just gonna be like, put a dragon on it. I'll make it work. But okay, so you said accent West Coast that you can sell. And that's but granted, I've always been in the West Coast, and like I can tell obviously accents outside of the US relatively easily. East Coast sometimes, but I guess I never see myself as having an accent, so it's not something that I proactively think about.
Most people don't think they do because they're used to hearing their own voice, so why are they going to tell they have an accent until
I know my tone? I know what my tone is like, but I always assume like my tone is like a personal thing because my inflection is higher. But I don't think that's an accent. I think that's a personal tone.
Yeah, that's more of a personal thing.
That could be because I know like my tone is always higher, and especially when I'm excited, and that's why I always come across with such high energy because of my tonal range. But that took years and years of understanding to reach that point. All right, let's see. Lynn was like, they bought a Blue Yeti mic, which is a good mic, by the way. Actually, a Yeti is a good mic. And we set up a booth made out of blankets and PVC pipe. Yep. So this is actually, so I'm glad you mentioned that. For anybody who's doing an audiobook, this is actually what recording artists will do. Like recording artists who are just starting out, singers, songwriters do this a lot. They will soundproof a room. Right. And they'll soundproof a room, usually the smallest room that you can. Maybe it's a bathroom or a closet or whatever. And then you set up the mic because sound carries and you want to be able to capture, get as much, I forgot the right terminology. You just don't want to get as much disruption from outside sources. So I'm not surprised to hear that, but that's actually really cool. And you can actually buy that soundproofing material. I forgot what it's called. It's like it's like the foam.
They're foam paddings.
Is it just? It's foam padding. You can actually buy that stuff really cheaply.
If you really want the good quality stuff, it's
good quality. Sure, but you could buy the minimum quality. All right, let's see. I'm just gonna look on Amazon. Amazon sound foam padding. You can buy a 52 pack or you can buy anywhere between 6 to 52 packs, starting as low as $12.99, or as high as $40 to $60. And that's just based off the first results that come up on Amazon. Who knows what quality that is? But I think it's sound dampening foam, and especially with like online shopping, like you can find things pretty easily.
Oh yeah.
But it's just obviously the lower quality you get, the more work you have to do to do the soundproofing. I think if there's a will, there's a way.
I really like Lynn's idea though, because I've heard that before, kind of like setting up kind of like a makeshift cubicle kind of thing around yourself to absorb the sound. That's actually a really good idea.
I used to worry about that a lot when I started the live streaming because I'm like, all right, well, I don't want the sound to carry. I need to have really good audio quality for people to be able to hear me. But I realized early on that it wasn't as important for live streaming, but far more important for video editing. Way more. And I'm like, it's fine. Plus, I'm happy with the mic that I got. And so I know you have a similar one.
I think that we actually have the same exact one.
Which I'm like, Good mic. I'm very happy with it. Let's see. Megan's like, accents can be tricky to grasp, even in writing. There's a lot of
find it actually
different
kind of easy.
How do you tackle accents in writing?
I know one character that I tend to work with. It's sort of I think I'd almost describe it as like a Southern accent.
Mhm.
I actually spell the words how it sounds. Of course,
Mhm.
I also grew up learning like phonetic spelling, so
Mm.
like phonetic spelling. So it's a little easier for me to spell it how it sounds,
Mhm.
even if that's not the correct spelling of it.
Mm.
So that's typically what I kind of do, and then like kind of like I use apostrophes for certain words if they take off the G's, if they take off the T's, things like
Mhm.
that, and it makes it a little easier. And then when I actually read it aloud, I can actually say it easier as well as read it.
It's actually interesting, and it sounds like that probably works for you. I mean, I know there's a number of different ways to go about accents, whether you're just adjusting dialogue or whether you could technically do you could change the dialogue itself, or you could do descriptions that set up how you think the character sounds. There's definitely a couple ways, but I don't think it's too difficult. I think I'm just trying to figure out what's the right method for your story.
Mm-hmm.
Courtney was like, I would change my writing if I knew I was going to record myself. Megan, I appreciate you. Megan's like, put a dragon on it. All right, guys. If there is one phrase that I think I can go viral over the next 10 years of this, it's put a dragon on it. I feel confident I can do it. I'm just gonna have to do enough videos where I'm putting a dragon on it. Oh man. Have a problem with the dishes? Put a dragon on it.
That's right.
Are you stuck writing your story? No worries. Put a dragon on it.
Do you have problems with your camera lagging every time? Put a dragon on it.
Hey, all right. Once again, friends, if you take away anything from this journey with me and the Right Now community, put a dragon on it. That will solve all your problems, I promise.
Exactly. You have a problem with anything, with money or your job or anything, you just put a dragon on it and it solves everything.
Oh man. Courtney's like, some words you say, Kaufman, you can hear an accent, but it's only some of your words.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not surprised. What's interesting, when I was really young, really young, I had a speech. I don't know if impediment is the right word, but I had a speech problem with certain say with two vowels. It's like two vowels. I just couldn't say. I want to say it was like R's and S's. It was very difficult for me. Like I couldn't say it at all. Whether that was, who knows, but I had to go to a speech therapist when I was really young to be able to pronounce them.
That would be a speech impediment.
Mm-hmm.
I only know that because my kids got that. So.
Oh man, let's see. Megan's like, I should make it into a sticker. Absolutely, Kaufman. When you make stickers for the channel, they need to be dragons.
Yes.
Oh man, I'll have people design. I'll have to get some cool dragon sticker designs, Megan, or maybe a corgi riding a dragon. Yes, Valkyrie and our dragon. I approve.
The root beer approves of this. Yes.
All right, let's see. But on that note, I think now's probably a good time to try to get a little bit of writing done. Well, do you guys think we'll be able to accomplish any writing today?
Hopefully.
I believe in the heart of the dragon.
Put a dragon on it.
Okay, I gotta admit, I loved Megan's. Let's see, what was it? Corgi dragon. I would love to try to draw that. That just sounds so adorable for some reason.
I'm like, what does a corgi dragon look like? Well, we now put it to you, the community. Are you going to help us determine what a corgi dragon looks like? Here's your chance, artist.
Thinking of like this really bulky dragon with these tiny little legs.
Megan was like, I saw on Twitter, I saw a bit of a corgi riding a pony, except it's a dragon. Yes. I was like, I feel like we have like a whole other story in the making. So when people are ready to write the spin-offs of our Hermes the Cat story, it's going to be a story about Valkyrie learning to find the heart of the dragon with Valkyrie's pet dragon. Megan's like, I want to be a judge on the Corgi Dragon art. Let's see. All right. So I think I have this ready. Is it go? Maybe.
That's what it's called. I get it now. The Corgi Dragon could be your new mascot. So if whoever can draw a good Corgi Dragon, that's the mascot for this channel.
Yeah, you know, I'll make this promise to everyone. If somebody can create a Corgi Dragon, if somebody can create a cool Corgi Dragon or a cool dragon animation or some type of artwork, I'll pay to turn it into an emoji. So that way we can use it on the Discord, on the channel, and I'll turn it into stickers and people can do whatever they want with it. I think that'd be hilarious. I was like, if I could draw more than a stick figure, I like to call my best artwork as polar bear in a snowstorm. Like, if you really squint hard enough, you'll see the polar bear, I promise. All right, friends. And on that lovely note, let's try to get some writing done. So with 110, we'll do try to see if we can get 2 20-minute sprints in. Let's see what work we can do. Whether you are brainstorming, writing, or editing, that's all part of the process. Come join us. Come try to see if we can get a little writing progress in today. Let's write a little bit. I need to work on our Romeo chapter. So that's what I'll be hopping on. Let's get a writing sprint in. And I think we're all ready. Soul Crazy, you guys ready? All right. Let's see what words we can get into. We got 20 minutes on the clock, and it's time to write now. All right, writing timer done. First writing sprint done. I felt very, very good about that. How did that treat both of you guys? Hopefully able to get some progress.
Yeah, I got into the next chapter of another story that I'm doing, so
nice. Well, actually, I guess I didn't get any words done. I was doing mostly editing that time. I realized for me to, because I'm hopped over to Hermes the Cat, and I realized for me to even get to my chapter, I have to keep going in chronology because I need to know the character beats that you've done for me to feel like I can accurately make sure I'm capturing Hermes character beats, which will be the same thing when to get to Act 3. Like I know before I can even write the Act 3 chapters, I'm gonna have to review yours and then what we have for Ginger Cat. So editing on my end. But I love what you did with Lucky, by the way. So that Lucky, like absolutely love it.
I am very proud of how I did chapter 4.
Perfectly represents the Lucky's image, the cat that we developed. How about you, Crazy? How that able to get any work done on your end, my friend?
Yeah, I got surprisingly at least a little bit done of one of the side characters finally introducing herself and who she is and why she's there in the first place. So
nice. Love it. I love it when we're actually able to get some progress. And I'm actually super excited to work on my Hermes chapter too. I want to write the cat Romeo. I really want to write that cat. I have some fun ideas. Crazy. One of the cats in our story is Romeo, and he's like a medieval one, and he's definitely a lover. And I'm like looking forward to. He's going to be like a Shakespeare archetype. He's going to be like a corny Shakespeare archetype. Nice. Actually, probably like a cross between Shakespeare and Robin Hood. I think that'll be his. Be like Robin Shakespeare. Sounds like we got some good. It looks like we got some other good work done here in the community. Megan, 500 word count, awesome. Courtney, 368 words, but I finally finished chapter 10. Hoorah! Yes, nice. Getting some work. Absolutely. So it looks like we're all making a little bit of progress here, which is awesome. And I mean, that's the goal, right? Trying to make some type of writing progress. Oh, man. Yeah. I'm working on multiple things this week, too. I really want to be working on Scarecrow. But it's kind of interesting. This is actually this month is the first time this year that I pivoted writing projects. Because I've really been focused on Scarecrow this year. I think the thing that's holding me back is I only write during the streams, so that's limited the amount of time it takes me, which is fine. I've committed to that and I'm happy with it. But I realize next year, whenever I get to the next book, if I start writing off the stream, my velocity will probably pick up for sure. But it's weird because I've always written like jumped between projects before, kind of like a lot of you guys do or are used to. So now I'm switching between Scarecrow Journey and then the Hermes the Cat story. And then there's another side project that I'm working on. So I'm like hopping between 3 different storylines, and it's always interesting when I have to like switch gears. Like I don't think there's a right or wrong method to switching storylines. Some people like to do one project and finish it. Some people like to have 10 projects through like a rotation, and that's what
kind of what I do. Because technically, like right now, I've got like 5 different projects going on. I've got 3 fan fictions, and I've got both. I have the 2 Hermes stories because the game is turning out different than the actual manuscript. Which makes sense. And then I've got Pirate, I've got Shifting Flame, and I've got like 2 other stories that I'm working on too.
Which is very, very cool. And I think something that I always hear with writers, right? I think the thing that always concerns me with working on different projects is the writer capable of completing the projects? So you've already published a book and you have a very high consistency. So I wouldn't even be worried about that for you at this stage in your writing journey. But for a lot of writers out there, I have that concern of like, all right, if you're jumping between writing projects, is that something that could be an obstacle that might prevent you from being able to finish one project and get it published? And I think that could be the case for a lot of writers out there. But at the same time, I'm like, yeah, definitely switch between projects. But I'm like, don't let the number of projects limit you from being able to achieve the goal of finally finishing one. And then I was going through this rotation of I always have 10 projects and I never finished with any of them. That's definitely something I've struggled with in the past before, so that's why I can resonate with it.
I think I'm more of a just do one project at a time, even though my brain is like 5 books ahead of me.
Yeah, and that's interesting. And I think then it comes into question, right? Is technically, if we're working on the same book in a series, is that considered a different project or is that considered the same? Obviously, I think if it's a spin-off, that's different. But technically, if I'm following the same storyline, whether I'm working on book 1 and book 2, is that one project or is that 2 projects? I don't know. It's technically 2 different. The character journeys are different storylines, but it's still part of the umbrella. It should be part of the overall umbrella of what the core story is.
That seems to be like how stories are. It's technically like one project split up into like different parts, because that's how Pirates is turning out. It's
you work on different parts of your book, don't you? So at a time,
there are 3 parts to each of the 3 main books, and then there's the 2 novellas.
Okay.
Which the first novella, the main one, it's from Kasai's point of view, but it's like 5 to 10 chapters at most. Okay. And then the other novella isn't from his perspective at all. It's 5 stories, 5 chapters for each of the 3 books, and each of those chapters is from a different person's perspective of a different part of the book.
Interesting.
Yeah, I actually can't wait to do that.
And I think once again it's just different strategies. And like I know, Crazy, you've gone pretty far into your series as well. Yeah, I haven't decided what I'm going to do with Scarecrow yet. I think whenever somebody finishes their first book, I think the question always becomes: do I start in book 2? Do I start something else? Do I do multiple books? I'm sure anyone working on a series can probably relate with that. So we'll see. Yeah. I'm having fun with Scarecrow. Too much fun, but I'm also having fun with Hermes. So
how could you not have fun with Hermes?
I know, and all 8 of his ghost lives. I loved creating all the cats for it this past weekend. That was actually a lot of fun.
That was awesome.
Just wait till I can finish photoshopping all the cats into one picture. I'll get it. Then I think we'll probably use that for the rough cover art, the rough cover design. Get Hermes and all the different styles of cats. So I'm super excited. And by the way, I guess I haven't done this so far in the stream, but if you're enjoying the stream, you should follow and subscribe. We're here every day with the Right Now community, whether writing sprints, writers group, author interview, or many, many other things. You should come join us because it's fun. We like to write on occasion and then hopefully give writing advice that helps. So tap those buttons and you'll be alerted when we go live. All right, my friends. So we got 20 minutes on the clock. So let's hop into another writing sprint because I really wanted to get 2 sprints in today. But we'll do it 25 minutes. Well, we'll up it just a little bit. Let me reset this. I'll fix the thing. I think we can make it work. So we'll do 1 more writing sprint. Let's try to get some solid writing in. We'll see if we can beat our previous record. 25 minutes on the clock. And I am all ready. Are you ready? All right, I think we do it. Let's make some progress, my friends. 25 minutes, and it's time to write now. All right, writing sprint done. Wonderful, wonderful. How'd that treat all y'all? I was like,
50 this time.
you said you got how much?
965 actually.
Nice, really, really nice work. I got through about half the chapter. It looks like got through about half of chapter 4 almost. I really wanted to start writing too. My what is it? Chronological completionist inside me won't let me until I get through the previous part. Plus, I need to go through editing anyways. So I'm like, might as well, since we'll have to go through this anyways before we finish. So, good work, very good work. For those of you who haven't seen, our Lucky the Cat is very, very well written. Very, very devilish.
You got past the darker part that I told you about.
That dark section was really good. That's probably that might have been one of the strongest branches that you've wrote.
Yeah, I'm honestly really proud of that one.
It makes me really sad for anybody who doesn't choose the dark path on that particular arc. It's just very well done. Oh man, crazy. How'd that sprint treat you?
Honestly, I did more of like brainstorming on this one.
More brainstorming?
Yeah. More
Makes
brainstorming
sense.
than writing.
Sounds like we've all been in kind of different parts over here. ML was saying they got 100, but trying to find a way to wrap up a chapter and keep the plot moving forward. So they were trying to almost at the end of a chapter. Courtney's like, they spent the entire time trying to figure out how to start this chapter. Megan got 350 words. Let's see. Courtney's like, does the character's name as the chapter title count? So then 1. If not, no.
Put a dragon on it.
No. You see, you already figured out my advice. Courtney, just put a dragon on it.
Yep.
And you see, it applies to all situations. You're like, well, there's no dragons in my story. It doesn't take place in a fantasy world.
That's okay.
Put a metaphorical dragon on it.
There you go.
It applies to all genres.
It seems as if both Courtney and ML just need to put a dragon on it.
If anyone ever tells me a dragon isn't real, then I'll be like, well, I guess you've never seen a Komodo dragon then, have you?
Yeah.
Oh man, sounds like we've been making some progress on our stories. Hopefully the sprints were able to help out a little bit. I got some solid editing progress. Makes me excited to get into the Romeo section. So, but that we got some pretty good progress today. That yeah, but as we've hit the 2-hour mark, that brings us to this part of our writers group. Chat Soul, Crazy Root Beer. Thanks for joining me today, my friends. I feel like we had some great conversations today about character development, book club, dragons, all the things. What more can you want out of a writers group? And writing, of course.
Okay, good. I was gonna say I'd say, but it wouldn't be appropriate. So let's move on.
Well, I totally appreciate you both. Crazy, great to have you back with us, my friend.
Yes, thank you.
And everyone, thanks for joining us in this stream. Courtney, Megan, ML, Lynn. Let's see, I know we had some other faces come through here. Appreciate you all. Glad you're able to hop into our writers group. For those of you who want to join us, we'll be back next Wednesday with our weekly writers group for our 20th 2020 meeting of the WriteNow Writers Group. I'll be back tomorrow with another writing stream. So tomorrow's Thursday, 2 p.m. Pacific, 2, 3, 4, 5 p.m. Eastern. So come join me if you want to come get some writing sprints. And that brings us to the end of the stream. I'm Kaufman, and this is
Chat Soul.
Crazy Root Beer.
And we'll catch you guys on the morrow. And don't forget, put a dragon on it.
That's right.